Hey, well, guys.
Hello, hello.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep,
I
can
can,
hear you.
I,
Hi,
All
Marcel.
right.
Hello,
All
Barry.
right. Hi, Mike. How you
hello,
doing?
hello.
How's it going?
Just adjusting the window here.
With me, well, thank you.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and ditto here. Actually, I thought we were meeting an hour ago, and so I was quite glad we weren't, because it gave me time to walk the dog, which
Okay.
too busy to do, so it's all worked well.
Okay. What kind of dog you have, Mike?
Got a Cairn Terrier.
Cairn Terrier.
So what most people are more familiar with is the West Highland, which is a small white dog.
Okay.
So it's very similar to that, but he's a sort of darkish color. But he's a terrier, basically. So
A Cairn Terrier, right?
yeah,
Cairn-
Cairn.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Terrier.
is he a real terrier?
Lovely.
Is he
A real terrier in
Oh,
that
he is,
sense?
yes.
Yes, yes.
Sadly, I have to walk him on a lead because most of the time he'd be fine, but if he sees a squirrel or something, you know, that's it for some hours. I discovered the hard way. So I always walk him on the lead now.
Yeah. Yeah. So they are hunting dogs, aren't they? Or
Yeah, they are. In fact, at the moment, whenever I take him out on the common, we have to keep stopping while he digs into molehills to try and catch the mole there, which he's so far failed to do, but he lives in hope.
All right. Yeah. So our husky does the same. He also likes to put his nose up rabbit holes.
Yeah.
And digging.
Mm.
And in fact, they've got this pointy snout, right?
Yeah.
Just for that.
And what he does is he digs, but then he uses his teeth to tear at the earth and the roots and the grass. So, you know, it's sort of like this.
His teeth, yeah, like that.
Yeah.
Biting the...
Yeah, anything
Nice.
he can do to get in there.
All right. Yeah, yeah. And very prey driven, right? So, yeah. Our husky also, right? It's hard to let him loose because once he's after the rabbits,
yeah, exactly.
That's it. It's finished. Can just wait until he comes back.
Yeah, because I mean he'll you know, I can often see him and I'll shout at him and he'll sort of look up and go yeah, and then just go back to
whatever he's doing.
Rabbits and of course if I try and catch him, he thinks this is just another game. So
yeah, and he's faster.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Hi, Freyja, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. Yeah, nice to see you.
All right, good to see you. So, shall we wait a little bit longer? See.
Sure.
Salva was going to join also, I think. So I'm not a very experienced host, so I'm figuring out a few things here. So
right.
If there's a hiccup, then be a bit patient, please. Let's see, who else was coming? No, that's it. Just Salva. Salva was quite busy. Oh, I can't make it, he says now. He says he cannot make it. Okay, so I think we might be complete then. So, yeah, so yesterday Barrie was there. We had in our weekly, yeah, how do you call it? Discussion or?
Yes.
Dialogue. Yeah. So we already talked a little bit about the topic. So that the idea is, yeah, well, in non-duality, I think what's an interesting question is, yeah, we feel resistance to the situation as is because non-duality in a way, is about just letting happen whatever happens. And yet we feel a resistance sometimes to whatever is. So can be that the as is, we don't like how the as is, we want to change it. Or perhaps we desire to be somewhere else, which is better, even better than where we are now. So we want to move. So there's, and at that moment, there's like an implicit creation of a subject and an object and a goal, and that in itself is not per se bad. It's quite natural for humans to have that experience. Yet sometimes this process of can become dysfunctional. Let's say, so you could say, yeah, in fact, everything is okay, whatever happens, right? Because we are basically we're perhaps denying there's even a doer, that we are the doer. So it just whatever happens, happens. Yet we feel resistance to certain situations. And yeah, how do we know when this resistance is how do we react on it with it? Like we don't need per se to have a final solution about what's good or what's bad or how should we do it, but what happens with resistance, and does non-dual recognition, does that change anything in how you act with that? So I've created a small presentation, but maybe before I start doing my slides, we can already do a little round, or maybe you have an idea of anything perhaps particular you would like to discuss or to talk about. Because somewhere when there's a resistance, there's somewhere implicitly or explicitly an ego who wants or a desire to change something. Not it doesn't have to be an ego, or there can be an ego, but the ego cannot be believed, which is also possible. Yeah, so does that do you have any ideas or feelings about that, or is it so? I mean, for the human mind, if the resistance is functional or dysfunctional, in the moment it occurs, it's the same, right? You cannot make a difference because you have just one mind and one experience, and you just find resistance at that moment. It's hard to say, is it functional or dysfunctional? Maybe it's not even necessary to make the distinction. So, Freyja, do you have an idea about that, perhaps? Or?
Okay, so how resistance, you mean by resistance you mean like an unpleasant emotion in the body, like psychological resistance?
Yes, that's what I mean. Yeah, mental, not right. So
yeah,
really subjectively felt a resistance. Yeah.
So not physical resistance, but psychological resistance.
Starting in the mind, and perhaps. Yeah. Yesterday we were talking. Indeed, some were saying like, yeah, okay. Once the resistance is there, it goes to the body. Right.
So, are you asking me what I think? Sorry, just to be clear.
Yeah. So, how do you experience resistance yourself, and where does it go to?
Yeah. So, resistance appears sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's understood to be an appearance, neither right or wrong, just what is appearing. And sometimes what also appears with resistance is curiosity about what this resistance is about sometimes. and less so, you know, resistance to resistance, if you know what I mean. So resisting resistance.
Yes.
So for me, the resistance is all to do with the self, really. Psychological resistance all to do with the self. So where there's no self, there's no resistance, really. But unpleasant emotions can still arise, but there's no self to kind of embed it, in a sense. Do you understand? So it doesn't. It's like the amplification doesn't happen. It's just, in fact, to be honest with you, if resistance does arise, it's considered to be a beautiful experience, not something unpleasant.
Right.
Something that's arising that's potentially interesting, even.
Right. Right.
Potentially interesting. Potentially, but not by anybody, but just for its own sake. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Because here it's understood there's no body resisting.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
But sometimes what's found, just to finish up, is that sometimes the pattern in certain situations, it's noticed that resistance does spring up a little bit. What might be considered resistance, in a sense, it's kind of not, it's kind of embryonic. It's kind of maybe tension of some kind, if that's what's meant. But there's no resistance to the tension, if that's what you mean. Yeah, so I suppose it's on a physical level, there may be still, let me just think of an example. Like, okay, so I get a doctor's letter inviting me for a medical appointment. There's going to be tension, you know?
Right.
I don't really want to go to see a doctor
Right.
and discuss health matters. That's kind of physical tension, but there isn't a building of emotional resistance around that tension.
Right. Right.
If there was, then it would just still be seen as this appearing. So it wouldn't be something I got to do something about. Do you know what I mean? Because there's nothing that we can do anything about it.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
I suppose you could breathe, do some kind of meditation and breathe and get calm then. That's possible.
Right. Right.
I don't know. That's possible. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. So basically, if I'm hearing you correct, right? So you're saying, for me, in my own experience, even if resistance arises, I take it as an appearance, and I don't resist the resistance. I accept in a way, but perhaps without even thinking about it. By not thinking about it, just let it happen. Right. The question that I'd have is like, still perhaps you're gonna do, or not you, but there will be something done about it. So you might have a certain, so something is happening. You're not. It can be.
All I can say is, if you try and do anything about it, it's going to make it 10 times worse. Right. You're on effect trying to resist resistance, aren't you?
Yeah, right. And it's about the psychological resistance.
Yeah, you're trying to say this shouldn't be here.
No, then you make it worse. But there's also the kind of resistance to an actual situation that occurs that is not okay. And that makes you also, I mean, the negative emotion perhaps also has a function, right? Like you want to either change the situation, or you want to, it can be very bad, and then there's a flight or fight idea, but
danger.
Or it can be like a real danger, or it can be something much lighter. It can be just like you saying, oh, I don't like where this is going. I don't like what I'm doing now. I need to do something else. I need to use my time differently. Those kind of ideas. or those kind of feelings that actually are functional in a way that they are, through this curiosity, perhaps telling you, hey, perhaps you can start doing something else, or either change the situation, or change how you look at the situation, change how you think about a situation. So there are moments where resistance is functional, where it tells you something.
It's always functional. It's always there for it kind of comes up, doesn't it? Triggers in some way.
Right.
Well, I mean, it comes from nothing, but it's always got a message.
Yeah. So you don't have to. You can welcome it, and yet still do something about it to make it go away.
Well, I question that because I don't know what you can do about it. I mean, you could breathe, in a sense. Psychological resistance comes from trying to change, if that's what we're talking about, my understanding.
Right.
So what could be done?
Yeah.
If the resistance is arising from the self and there's no self, what can be done?
Yeah, so if it arises from the self, then it would be a dysfunctional resistance. And if it doesn't arise for the self, if it is, then it's a functional resistance in that model.
Yeah, you mean like if you've got a car coming towards you and your body resists the car by jumping out of the way.
Yes.
Yeah, that's natural. Exactly.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about that kind of resistance here, are we?
Well, the thing is, what I know I complicated it a bit, but so how do you know which one is which? Because now it's, the car is quite clear. That's a clear case. When you are brooding and cannot sleep about a problem, that's perhaps dysfunctional resistance. But how can we tell them apart? Because it's in the same mind.
It's in the same mind, but okay. So why would Are you asking me as I'm doing all the talking?
No, maybe no. It's just.
Well, let's agree parameters here. Is everything like if resistance appears in the form of negative thinking or negative feelings? Do we agree that that is an appearance of what is?
I do agree. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So do we agree that there is only what is, and any self is just an illusion? There's no self.
I agree with it. Yeah.
Okay. So if
it's
there
also
is
an appearance. Yeah.
But then the separate self illusion can arise, causing resistance.
Yeah. I think there can even be resistance, perhaps without a self. It's just a feeling. You just accept the feeling.
I like what
You have to explain that to me.
So yeah, I'll explain. But Barrie wanted to say something.
I liked what the word curiosity that was used yesterday and today. And I'm wondering if at times in the as is, that we experience, there may be, now whether it's actually resistance or whether it's a choice or something, but that you might take a different direction, which is a different kind of experience, maybe than what we're saying. But is that part of this puzzle?
Yeah. So, in my opinion, yes. Since within the one conscious experience that is, it's hard to make a distinction between. Let me put it slightly differently. Like, if I watch a movie and I see all kind of characters popping up, and it might be a horror movie, and there's a lot of slashing and chainsaws going on, then I might feel revolted, and I cannot watch it. I want to turn away. But at no moment do I think that any of it is real. So I can still see all the appearances that occur, including myself, as characters in a play in which the character experiences resistance to a situation. The character wants to change the situation, and while the non-duality itself is unconditioned, before any conditions, I think the conditions themselves, the appearances themselves are conditions. So because we live in a world that unfolds, a world of appearances that unfolds according to cause and effect, even though everything is basically appearance, including us as persons and as doers.
Mm. Mm.
And it so that means that if you are experiencing resistance, you can have some psychological distance from it. And I'd say you can experience resistance without believing there's a self. Or
I see. Okay, that's not my experience.
Okay.
My experience is the body will intelligently reject danger.
Right.
And I don't have any control about that. It just does it by its own instinctual processes. That could involve the scenario that you just described. Maybe there's a sort of sense of something, danger, unpleasantness, I don't know. I mean, my borderline. But my own experience is that resistance is all centered around the notion of being, it's the story of the self. Right. Trying to change something that is.
Right.
That's what I think. It arises on behalf of a self, which is trying to say, I don't like what's going on here. I'm not comfortable about what's going on here. It's the other half of seeking. I don't like what's going on here, and I want something else to happen that isn't happening.
Yes. It's either desire or aversion.
Exactly. Seeking, or whatever we want to call it. Seeking, resisting, avoiding, So it's directly attributable to the story of the self, which is cool. If that arises, it's fine. It's still this arising as a story of the self. Yeah. And the thing is, if you think this, the story of the self would agree that there's something that can be done to get over this resistance, i.e. in return to a state of non-resistance. And if the cause of the psychological resistance in the first place is the self, the illusion of self, then the only thing that could ultimately be done is to stop that illusion.
Yeah.
Or for that illusion to stop.
Yeah.
Because if there's a story of the self that says, I'm feeling resistance and I want to do something about this, then maybe what if I could do, maybe meditate for an hour, do some breathing exercises. What would that amount to? That would amount to calming the mind and body, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But not getting to the root of the psychological resistance in the first place. Just be calming the mind and body from the effects of the illusion of separation.
Yeah.
So you're not getting to the root of the matter.
And you're saying we should get to the root of the matter, or?
I'm saying there's no one who can get to the root of the matter.
Okay.
Because to say that there's a we that could get to the root of the matter would imply that you and I are people that could get to the root of the matter. And the irony is, we've got to stop. We've got to realize that is the illusion that we're holding. Does that make sense? In the first place.
Yes. In fact, it was a good moment for me to start my small presentation, my slides.
Good.
Because you were talking about something that's also in my presentation. So let me see if I can do that. Hold on. Window, slideshow. Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
Okay. So show my screen anyway. Yeah. Okay. So I think, well, maybe I tell a little bit background for some of you. Like that I have come to, let's say, non-dual insight in 2016. Kind of an insight which was totally unrelated to spiritual, yeah, not totally, but rather unrelated to, let's say, spiritual seeking. I wasn't a spiritual seeker, but I guess I did have some issues I was dealing with. So yes, and at some point I had this insight, but not so much no self, but more like that. Indeed, the whole world is appearances, and kind of a reversal, a metaphysical reversal, in which instead of saying, "Oh, I live in this world of that we consider the outside world," I realized, no, that basically what I really am is the mystery that from which all those appearances come. So that is something that I felt in 2016. And that was a wonderful experience. And the best word I could find for it was satori. So, and I didn't even know that word. So I had to, I started reading a lot about it because I have perhaps a bit of an atypical mind for many people in non-duality. Or, yeah, atypical. There's all kind of people in non-duality, but I'm, yeah, I guess non-duality is rather something about holistic, right? And I'm an engineer, so I'm very much focused on details. So if you as an engineer want to solve a business problem, a complex business problem, you have to take care of all the details because the devil is often in the details. So, and I noticed, so I came from that from my own experience, and I noticed that it's yeah, it's largely compatible with everything that I hear in the non-dual community, but sometimes also not completely. So, and that's what I'm curious about. So let me see. Let's go forward. So non-dualism. So I like to this question like, what is non-dualism? Is it only something for subjective experience? Or is it something that we can talk about in reasonable words and without falling into always the paradox? Yeah, so that's something I'm. So is it well, it is obviously a culture because non-dualism is a culture. Buddhist culture is the Japanese in the flag of Korea, South Korea, it has the yin yang symbol. So obviously, it's a culture, right? But that means that we can find, yeah, that it should be possible to find words, even though words are conceptual. So non-duality is something holistic, and it often starts from spirituality. And okay, my mind is more geared towards details, although I also have an curiosity about holistic ideas, but I think they are in themselves a paradox. So I think once you really understand the details, you also see the big picture. I think both are possible. So, and as an engineer, I'm a bit skeptical. So I always, if somebody comes up with an example, I always try to find a counterexample to see if it's correct, and I do the same in my own mind. So whenever so one of the reasons why I write is because once I've written something down, I can verify if what I said is basically makes sense, or if I start to contradict myself with something else I've said somewhere. Because normally, contradictions means there's something wrong. So a contradiction needs a resolution, and ultimately there is no resolution in non-duality because the truth is preconceptual. Yet we can get a long way with reason, but it's not your typical way of investigating non-duality, where you often start with from an inquiry. Subjective introspection. So what I'm interested in is to see if we can build a bridge between non-duality and reason, even though that's almost like cursing in the church, because reason and non-duality, they are considered absolute opposites, which in itself is pretty dualistic thing to say. So reason should also be part of non-duality. If it were to be really non-duality, there's nothing else. So reason should also be part of it. So how far can we get? So is some kind of a synthesis possible? I am totally aware that non-duality itself is preconceptual. So I see it somehow, as I've come to understand it, is that non-duality, what is this and the beingness, etc., the knowing, the being knowing, the all-inclusive being knowing, is preconceptual. And once you start to conceive it, you basically already lost it, right? And that preconceptual totality, that is unconditioned, right? It's unbound, it's unconditioned. But the appearances that arise from it, they are conditioned.
Apparently.
Yeah. So I think we can. I'm not saying that I found that synthesis, but I like to investigate that. I think that's a very exciting project. But the devil is always in the details. So so talking about resistance. So I experience resistance. I have a low tolerance for cognitive dissonance. So that means that before I really accept something, I really have to have it clear in my mind as to why. That means that we often speak about words are not so important; they're just pointers. Still, I think we can be quite precise with our words. That is also helpful. So mental resistance. We're talking about mental resistance, not so much an uprising against whatever, right? Or war or those kind of things. But, so there is functional versus dysfunctional resistance. I think it's not, I kind of have difficulty with saying wholesale all resistance is bad. You should always accept whatever it is. I think I'm curious about when can resistance be functional, when dysfunctional? So privately, non-duality gives an enormous inner peace, right? Because we know ourselves to be the ocean, and we see all the waves as appearances, and this gives an enormous peace, because that gives you a certain distance to problems that arise. Plus, you also know that those problems, as they arise, that they are perfectly as they should happen. because as I came to understand recently, there is really no free will. So everything is really predetermined. It's just that we don't know it. So even if bad things arise, they have to be like that. And this gives also an enormous peace and acceptance, just to know this. But yeah, so there's also something like outer peace. So yeah, we're not, it's quite egoic to only think about ourselves and egocentric. So we live in a world of appearances, like when we speak now, right? We are still appearances talking to each other, right? So we don't have to believe that we exist as selves, yet we spend a lot of time in talking to each other. So and so those are the waves, right? In this the ocean waves metaphor. So that's the people, that's the selves, there's the feelings, words, concepts, right? And yeah, we spend a lot of time in the world of appearances. So psychologically, right? So, and I think also we can really mess up. We can really mess up and can make big mistakes in how we treat each other. So, yeah, perhaps. So that's the question that I have. So does non-duality also have a meaning for the world of appearances? Beyond it is all just waves and temporary appearances. Can we say something more than just that, right? And just trust our feeling, and every appearance will go away in the limit. And engineers like to think ideas through in the limit. What would happen if I would really take this all the way, this idea? Then there's not much left, of course, right? If we just say everything is temporary, and we shouldn't put too much value in there, then yeah, still we get a lot of the value that we experience. We get exactly from that, from family, from friends, from experiences. Yeah, so we spend a lot of time psychologically with our feelings in the waves, in between, in the world of the waves. So that's kind of something interesting to investigate. So that's why I devised a thought experiment, because now you've been listening long enough. So it's time for you guys to become active. So does that make sense until now?
I have got one or two questions, but I can leave them to the end. It's fine.
Okay. So I want to do a little thought experiment, and it's not so much just for the personal piece that one feels subjectively, but more like for this moment that we are in the outside world, meeting other people. So here we have one mama, and she has the No Self t-shirt. So she knows everything about non-duality. She's really aware of it. And she's there with the two kids, one boy and one girl. And they're on the beach, and it's really hot. And yeah, so I have a couple of questions about this picture. So who in this picture feels resistance, right? There's going to be more happening. So at this moment, who feels resistance? Well, the boy seems to be not happy. He's quite hot in the sun. The girl seems to be quite happy. She's smiling. But we don't know exactly what's going on. There's a sign there behind the mother, which says, don't go in the water, because it's dangerous. I don't know what's happening. Maybe it's sharks, like in South Africa. or maybe it's a rip current, or maybe it's just polluted. I don't know, but it shouldn't go in the water. Okay. So, and the question is, if we see what happens, can we tell that, well, who has too much ego, or who is suffering from the ego? So who has a perhaps dysfunctional resistance? Okay. So here's what's happening. So the boy asked the mom, because he's hot, "Mom, can we swim?" And the mother says, "No, cannot swim." Of course, she has seen the sign, right? But the boy cannot see it, right? So at this moment, who experiences resistance? Mike, what do you think? I don't want to, there's no good and bad answers, but just...
It's difficult from the outside to know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think depending on how young the little girl is, you know, she doesn't yet have an ego, then probably there's no resistance at all. There is just this.
Yeah, she seems happy.
Yeah. I mean, if the mother... Yeah, I mean, I think I would need to know the internal process. I would guess that the boy probably is feeling resistance, just because it's unlikely that, you know, that he's outgrown his sense of self or whatever. Who knows with the mother? I suppose as well, in terms of the presentation, I'm curious about why resistance needs to be functional or dysfunctional,
right? Rather
than just being resistance that can either... I did some training in the Sedona method a year or two back, or more, I don't know. And one of the things I liked about that, because it's essentially about accepting what is, and if you resist accepting what is, then you accept, or you're invited to accept, the resistance to accepting what is. And that practice for me is one which I aspire to. And it reminds me as well of a quote I think attributed to Krishnamurti, when he was asked sort of what his secret was of being killed or whatever, enlightened, was he said, "My secret is I don't mind what happens." And that kind of suggests an absence of resistance.
No mind, literally, he said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, did he? Right. Okay. Yeah.
So, no, I hear you.
No, he said, "I don't mind."
I don't mind. Yeah, that's an interesting.
But yes, you
phrasing.
could say, in a way, so there is no mind.
Right.
There's just this.
Right. The Sedona method. So can you? What's the main? Let's say. So you accept what is, or
it's
something
a
specific
kind of acceptance practice where you take some situation, you notice what feelings arise when you contemplate that situation, and then you accept the feelings, or maybe even welcome the feelings, or if you can, sort of savor the feelings. So it's all about allowing them, and so you welcome everything that's arising, including the resistance, and then you either let go of what's going on or you surrender deeply to it. And the sort of further step is to sort of recognize this within the context of it all arising in this. So you sort of step back into, if you like, the non-dual space.
Right.
So, but yes, as heart, it's a process for acceptance. So it's a very simple essence to it, but then there's a certain amount of form around it to guide you through that process.
Yeah.
And actually, while I'm talking as well, I was struck sort of earlier in the conversation. So when I was out walking the dog earlier, I was listening to something on the Waking Up app, and it was Joan Tollefson talking about contraction. And I was very struck by that, because it feels like if there's no sort of, you know, if there's openness, if there's spaciousness, if there's this, then there's no sort of self and there's no resistance. And but what often happens is things contract in, things tighten up, and then there's resistance to what is. So this idea of contraction and relaxation as being related to that sense of self, and then resistance, or as there's the sort of release, a release into non-duality, or into non-duality. There's also a falling away of resistance. So that's kind of what has been evoked for me, or has reminded me of, is this very sort of physical but psychological sort of contraction that can go on, and then I'm really selfing strongly and resisting the way things are and everything. But then if I can sort of relax, it all sort of dissolves into this.
Right. So how does that translate if, for instance, you're studying for some kind of a degree and it's really hard, it's really difficult, but you really feel like you would like to achieve this? How does that... I could imagine that then, okay, at some point you feel really stressed out and you do such an introspection, and you deal with those feelings, and then you continue perhaps, or because so what I missed a little bit in a lot of the non-duality models is there's also, it's quite human to strive for something, right? And also that needs to have its place somewhere, and that means also, even if it's not for yourself, if you see an injustice to someone else, you might really feel you have to do something about it.
I'm not really sure what non-dual striving looks like. It's
or is there no striving at all once you
I mean, in terms of the studying or whatever, I think part of that would be, you know, noticing what was happening and, you know, allowing that anxiety or whatever was arising. But I guess also there would be a recognition that all of this is happening within this mental space. And so I suppose one way I conceive that is that's, if you like, this bubble within just this, within all this.
Yeah, right.
And
create some distance.
Yeah, not just, yes, distance, but also recognizing that this is just because you mentioned how to deal with contradictions earlier on, or you mentioned contradiction anyway. And it's like, well, contradiction is a function of the mental space, and paradox and so forth. There's not, it's not sort of out there in the world. It's in here in our thinking about it.
Right.
And you know, it's kind of as, So I think recognizing that there is this subspace of our reality, which is our conceptualizing about the world, and to remember that this is just, you know, the map, the concepts we have about it. It's not actually reality. And I find that helpful to remember when I'm getting lost in the concepts and treating them as the reality. And I'm not saying it's easy to drop that. I mean, I'm very attached to my concepts and everything. But it does, I find, help to relax things if I can remember that all of this is happening in this kind of artificial world, or this artificial representation that we've created of reality out there. And it's not reality, it's this map that we've made.
Appearances, conditioned appearances, basically. Okay, so let's continue with that presentation. So as I see it, well, the mother, the boy wants to go in the water. He's hot. He wants to swim. The mother says that's not a good idea because she knows the danger. So she gives a firm no. Right. So she has, in a way, a resistance to. She's not about allowing the boy to go in the water. No, she's about refusing the boy to go into the water. The boy doesn't seem to be happy because he's so hot and he cannot go in the water. So let's see what happens in the minds of those two kids. So, boy. So, so the boy says, that's not okay, right? Why are you not allowing me? You're making my life miserable. Why can't you not just allow me what I want to do? And he says, because he knows his mother is doing meditation, she should meditate more because she's bothered by her ego, right? But the girl, what would the girl say? She's perhaps, so she says, Mom must have a good reason why we cannot swim. And in fact, she has, of course, because it's dangerous in the water, right? So the question, and the next question is, so who has too much ego? Let's call it. Yeah, I still think those are relevant questions. I still think we can say meaningful things, even if it's appearances. So I'm totally on board with the inner peace of non-duality, and I think I'm so fortunate that I can live it also on a daily basis. But I think that And that's perhaps the most liberating and most important thing. But there's still something more to be said, I think, about, for instance, listening to each other. So what you could say is that the mother, she refuses, but she does it for good reasons, right? The boy, he judges the mother without knowing why she says no. And the girl, she trusts the mother and says, okay, you must have a good reason, right? So I think it's something that resistance is resistance. You don't know when you experience resistance. You don't know if it's something good or something bad. It's something to be curious about. But how do you know? Like in this case, it's between people in a way. So but it seems to me like we often talk about listening, right? And that we should listen better. But if we talk about between people, it seems that if you want to listen well, you must. I think what's the difference between listening and just hearing is that you try to understand the other person. Right? Listening means, I guess I heard there are 5 models of listening, or maybe even more. But I think listening, the main difference between listening and hearing is that you must try to understand why someone says something. So if you stop being curious about why the other person thinks and does what they do, yeah, perhaps that's a sign of too much ego. So
So I'm sort of wondering here if there's something so all 3 of them have an ego, and maybe one of the questions is, to what extent are they controlled by that or lost in that ego? So, for example, the little girl, yes, what she's thinking is quite reasonable, but maybe she has a very compliant ego where whatever anybody says, however unreasonable or ridiculous, she would go, yeah, but they must have a good reason.
right.
So, she could be really lost in her ego and or maybe she is much less sort of lost in her ego, but she is thinking, well, in this case, actually mum must have a good reason. So is it less about how much ego we have and more about the extent that we can transcend our ego?
Yeah, it could well be that indeed that the girl is too compliant and that it happens to work in this case, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we don't really know, right? So perhaps the most reasonable thing to do would be to ask mom why, right? So, but well, I think the boy definitely judges too soon, right? So he should ask, or he doesn't. Yeah, he judges immediately, like, but why? Right, but both make assumptions, right? Both make unchecked assumptions. So I think so. within non-duality, we live in this world of appearances, like, because all three of these people, they are appearances. They are just what's happening in the now, but it's a conditioned appearance. So I go a bit. So yeah, it's all about the world of appearances. It unfolds, but it unfolds conditioned. It's all conditioned. So while the non-duality is unconditioned and a given and not conceptually understandable, what follows from it is the appearances are entirely conditioned. We just observe them.
Can I just come to account of that? Is that really true? Do we know that? I mean, what we could say is that the appearances appear. Can you define what you mean by conditioned? Do you mean like there's a continuity between them? Is that what you mean?
Yes. Continuity, causality. So and none of those we know for a fact to be true, but it's just our experience. That's how we experience the world.
It's a kind of inference.
It is, yes. Everything is inference. I think all our knowledge is inference. Yeah.
So we could see, would it be possible to put forward a model whereby there's no cause and effect and simply everything is causeless, but it looks like there's cause and effect from the point of view of the mind. So it does actually appear to be causal from the mind's point of view, although actually in reality it's not. It's simply causeless in that sense.
Yeah.
In a sense, it's like it's like a lot of like a movie strip with lots of still images on it, which when you play the movie looks like there's continuity, but actually there isn't. There's just lots of still images on it.
Yeah, it's just I think that is definitely possible, right? But the problem with such a worldview is that it's we cannot understand it. We cannot do science.
I mean, continuity does appear to appear, that's true. So, but it would be just, it wouldn't, it would just be an appearance of continuity.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I agree. It's totally. Yeah.
It wouldn't. I mean,
but I think
there's discontinuity as well, isn't there? So discontinuity can appear.
Apparent discontinuity, but because I think the non-duality space is pre-conceptual and not and mysterious in that we cannot conceive it, we cannot contain it in equations or in a whole. We cannot conceive it. Somebody wants to join the call. Who is that? No, great. But
yeah.
Hi, Tim.
Hi, Tim.
Hi.
All right. Yeah. So where was I? I forgot.
Continuity.
Yeah, continuity. So in the non-dual space, that is beyond our conceptual understanding. So that's just a given. That's the mystery, and we are part of that mystery. So we are not separate from that mystery. In fact, we are that mystery. But the appearances that come from that mystery, they we can infer from the way that they appear to us that they are continuous, and it also kind of makes sense because the present is a singularity, and that means that the cause and effect are always combined, right? They don't appear separately. There's never a cause separate from an effect. So that would from that you can infer that there's continuity and causality. So, and that's the way that our world appears conditioned, and that's also the way that that we can do science and that we can talk about the world as it appears, and that we can do scientific verification. Otherwise, that wouldn't make sense. If causes and effects are separate, that's what we call a miracle, right? And miracles are more supernatural inferences than so. But when we talk about nature, nature is continuous from our observations. So, and I think precisely because the present is singular, that causality is a fact in the world of appearances, and that's how I understand that appearances are conditioned, which means that they underlie or they are based on conditions, right? They're the conditions of causality and the condition of identity. If we talk about the same thing with 3 or 4 different words, we all mean the same thing. So that's the principle of identity, and also the principle of non-contradiction. So if we say two things in the world about the world of appearances that are contradictory, then only one of them can be right. And at the little girl there, she says, "Mom must have a good reason," which is the principle of sufficient reason. So those are all principles of yeah. That's how the appearances. That's not because we want them to be true, but that's just the syntax of the appearances. They appear according to the laws of continuity. As opposed to that they appear because of an objective reality, because the objective reality is beyond us. Because that's a dualistic concept. Does that make sense? So while non-duality can give a huge inner peace, I think it also has something to tell us about how not only about our private experience, but also about how we deal with each other, beyond merely saying, well, we'll feel more compassion, because I think that non-duality invites to listen well to each other, to try to understand why someone is saying something, because we are all in the same. We are all the same reality. So either we don't have to be curious. I mean, we cannot be curious about the whole world, but if we are curious about something, then so what in this example, what the boy does, he just judges his mom, and he's not curious why his mom says something. So that's why I think in this case, his resistance is dysfunctional. While he might be totally at peace in his own private experience, but yeah, there's also a public life, and there also is a question: what is functional resistance and what's a dysfunctional resistance? But I've been talking too much, so Barrie, what do you think?
I'm actually trying to sort of get to the point that I'm trying to work out what your point is.
Right.
Because obviously the subject is resistance, and it appears to me that you've put out very well, expressed very well the problem that we all can relate to of an emotional resistance because of ego, and that being unhelpful, and of course it's not real, but it becomes real. But I'm interested in that you've gone into the world of curiosity, as almost, a form of, it's not a solution, but a methodology. So it's quite beautiful. So that's where I'm at. I've enjoyed this whole thing. I'm just trying to work out the relationship between resistance and curiosity.
Yeah, I think as Freyja also said, like, it's a great thing if you feel resistance, that it can create curiosity. Either in yourself, maybe finding out within yourself what's going on. Why do I have this? Because probably most of our beliefs are not conscious. They're unconscious or subconscious, and perhaps it's good to investigate where does this come from? Why do I feel this? And then to process it. And I'd say almost like that we can also have a resistance, not so much within ourselves, but also with other people. And there you could almost apply the same principle of curiosity. Why do I experience this resistance? Maybe before I start to judge, maybe I can become curious about why someone thinks something, or why someone reacts in a certain way before judging. But at some point, the judgment will be made, perhaps, even about oneself, and say, okay, this is either the resistance goes away. Okay, no, I was wrong. It's all fine, or I should do something about it.
I do quite, I really like that, because in my experience, often the resistance goes away because I obviously see it as false, and it's not real, and it passes. But I do like the idea of being curious, because so it's a form of inquiry into the resistance, which is it's quite beautiful. So yes, I like that.
I was just reconnecting to the question when you sort of trailed this a few days ago, Marcel. You asked a question something like, "What does resistance feel like?" And what I'm realizing as we talk is that it feels like a contraction, and then sort of accepting the resistance, or being with the resistance, or allowing the resistance, is like a releasing. And I think for me then, when there's this contraction, I might want to sort of release the contraction, but also to be curious about what the contraction is about. So the contraction in that case sort of becomes a useful stimulus to being curious. So rather than it just being, you know, I feel contracted, or I'm digging in, or, you know, whatever, it's like, oh, that's interesting. So so using it as a pointer to something to explore, or or just allowing it and letting it loosen.
Yeah,
so I think that's sort of where I am at with this at the moment.
I was also we talked about it yesterday, right? When Pauline was it, she said also, resistance in if you go to the gym, you need some resistance training. You look for resistance, right? So, and I know if one does, let's say, dancing with another person, you cannot be just totally weak. The one you need to give a bit of resistance in order to guide someone. So, and I think also in a personal relation, if you have a personal relation with someone and the person basically has no personality, says always yes, I agree, and that's also not what we want, right? We like to have a bit of resistance. It's almost we need resistance. We need also challenge. Get super bored if we don't have any challenge.
Yeah, there's a kind of floppiness, isn't there? If there's no resistance, no. I mean, nothing really changes. You just sort of flop around. There's nothing to engage with.
There seems to be some kind of misunderstanding about what non-duality is saying, because non-duality is not about just being at peace and going around without, you know, like you're sort of like this all the time. That would be a complete misunderstanding of what non-duality is. It's aliveness happening. It's aliveness appearing as resistance, as anger, as hell, as love, as these things. And excuse me, when there's no self, the only thing that's different is there's no narrative around those. It can express fully as resistance without the unnecessary narrative. I mean, when you say resistance, you mean like, yes, I mean, what you're talking about is pushback in a discussion is a kind of physical resistance, communicative resistance again. But the psychological resistance of I don't like what's going on in this moment goes. That resistance goes. I think that's what you're trying to say. I'm not sure. I don't know, but it's the sense of what I'm trying to say. So in other words, we don't just sit around with arms closed doing nothing here. We live completely, fully, and passionately aliveness. And this is why I don't like, personally, I draw away from things like welcoming, accepting. Those kinds of things imply a little bit that there's someone here to accept it anyway, and there isn't. Or there's someone here to welcome it, and there isn't. Do you know what I mean? That's the irony. It kind of reinforces the very self that we've dropped. So I have to accept resistance. Why? I mean, what does that mean? It's like, well, because I want to get rid of it somehow. I want to change it somehow. But that is the root of the psychological resistance. You understand? So it's kind of circular process. So I think quite naturally, when there's no self, then any of these experiences are lived fully, more fully. I can't say that for sure even, but it seems to be the case. I agree. To be the case. And so it all comes down to seeing that there's no self, or the no self idea, just stopping. And back to the cause and effect discussion, that seems to me here, the experience here is that that is completely spontaneous. There's nothing that can be done to bring that about, because that would imply a self that can do something, which there doesn't exist. So there never has been a self. It's never not been, that's never not been here. Anyway, those are some thoughts I share. But also, I just want to say that your diagram reminded me of a diagram I use, actually, but slightly differently, a variation. And I just sort of saw the mother as the essence, the being, if you like, in this metaphor, mother for me. Then when I saw no self, I saw the child saying no, not the mother. And I said that I saw, because the child's being programmed with instinctual survival mechanisms. So I saw that the child would say to the older brother, no, I don't want to go, that's dangerous. Something instinctually would be playing out. And then the brother would turn to the child and start criticizing the child and resisting the child's resistance and telling the child to shut up and egoically suppressing the child. And it was only when the mother came back into the equation that the two children could, that resistance would drop. Because the sense of self is particularly held within the mind of the teenage child, it seems to me, and that's simply what I saw there. Anyway, so it's not like the mother saying no. The mother always says yes in a way, but the child says no. The child says no. I don't want to go in the sea because it's dangerous.
Right.
And the brother turns to the child and says, you're boring, you're rubbish, go away, I don't like you, I want to play, I want to do this, and starts trying to control the child. You know, that's how I saw that. And the mother comes back and calms the boy down, and then that upsets the child and calms the child down in a way. That's the kind
so
of
the
thing.
mother is the wise person.
The mother's the field of love.
Yeah.
And the mother is imbued within the child. I do agree with you, a certain sense of principles or intelligence that protect the body from danger, physiological danger. So that's for me, that's a sign of love.
No.
Love in action.
In fact, in this little story, she also says no out of love, right?
Well, she's saying yes to everything, because the whole of that diagram is her, is an appearance of her.
Okay.
The ocean, the sand, the two children, the words, everything is an appearance of her. No. She said yes to everything, basically.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So in the same, so the mother is not just this person on the left, but basically the whole picture.
Just the whole picture, the whole screen upon which everything is appearing. Yeah.
So at that level, she said, "That's very beautiful." So at that level, there's a yes to everything that happens.
Yeah, I mean that's what I call the universal family in my model. Yeah, that's the universal family. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So the mother's the field of love, and then what happens is the teenage boy, in my little metaphor, doesn't know because it's too preoccupied with objective reality and too looking around, doesn't see the mother, doesn't see the being, doesn't see the back, where it's all coming from, the source. So he's just trying to control the child all the time, keep the child safe.
Right.
And for me, when I see that diagram, the boy represents the mind and the girl represents the body. So what happens is the boy and the girl start arguing.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to do this. No, you can't do that. I want to do that. No, you can't do that. I want to do that. No, you can't do that. Limiting beliefs, limiting beliefs, limiting beliefs. And all the boy's trying to do is tell the child, I've got, I'm going to protect you by not allowing you to do anything. That's my ego defense mechanism.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So I'm going to tell you that you can't do anything, you're inadequate, you're rubbish, and that's going to limit your action and protect you. It's a protection mechanism. That's what I see it as being. So I never blame the mind, because the mind's just doing the job. The only thing the mind hasn't done is, it's not even the mind's done anything. It's just that as soon as the mind as soon as separation stops, which I don't believe starts the mind by basically, I think it starts in the ether. As soon as separation stops and the children start to understand more clearly their position as appearances, and they chill out, stop attacking each other. Does that make sense? Yeah. It's like, you know, it's like you're a parent and you've left your teenage child in charge of your 2-year-old child, and you've told the teenager, I'm just going down the shops to get something. And as soon as you leave the room, the teenager starts shouting at the little girl in the room to try and control her. That's what the ego does, isn't it? It's a defense mechanism. I mean, it seems to me, you could see it like that.
Yes.
You know, but as soon as the mother comes back from the shops, love prevails. Then everything is okay again. Oh,
Yes.
Mum's back. Cool, we're safe. We're all safe. Yeah. Anyway, that's my thought. That's my thought.
Yeah. So there's a bigger picture beyond. So we're looking at all the details because we are very much focused on the little story that's unfolding. But
Yeah.
what we don't see is that basically the totality is already okay, no matter what.
Totality is everything already. Exactly. It's always whole and always complete. And it's just because the children aren't seeing the totality, because they're temporarily blinded from it, that they start arguing with each other, bickering with each other. But as soon as they start to see they're safe, they start to function quite constructively. I think that plays to your world of functional or dysfunctional behavior. They start to function more naturally because they feel safe. Anybody would if you were surrounded by love, indestructible love.
Yeah.
You know, but we are that indestructible love, you see. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So in this metaphor, that the thought processes of the little child, the way I share it is the family. It's like the child is the teenager is the mind, and the child is the body. Just a little story, but it helps people understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that the resistance comes from the instinctual need to protect, but it becomes amplified by the belief to be a separate self. Resistance is built into the body's intelligence. I resist, I push back, I protect myself, I boundary, but it becomes distorted and amplified by the belief to be a separate self. And then all the that's been my experience anyway. I don't know what yours is, but so then all the unnecessary thought processes, limiting beliefs that come from that, and criticisms and judgments and those kinds of things come through that process. That's the continuity, because once the illusion is set up, then the continuity is those kinds of thoughts occur.
Yes.
You know, like I see that if you know, when I mean, I practice psychotherapy, and I always point out to people, I try to get people to remember. It's not always easy, but you can notionally remember the very first time as a child you felt uncomfortable because your mother shouted at you, or your father shouted at you, or you witnessed an argument between your mother and father and you felt frightened, or something happened that made you feel, I'm not sure about this. Does that make sense? So the body contracted its energy, and because you were a child and you had no idea what was happening, you didn't like the result and you tried to resist it, and then the ego starts to build up immediately. So you start to resist the feeling. I don't like this feeling. There's something wrong. Then you go to, even sometimes if it carries on, then the child comes to the conclusion there must be something wrong with them. That's where the ego builds into that kind of separate self. Oh, there's something wrong with me. Why do I always feel so? And you become entranced with this awful feeling. And that's the kind of more extreme states where you get to depression and anxiety states and all the rest of it. Hopefully, normally, you agree, these contracted energy feelings just dissipate quite naturally because they're part of the natural process. But where there's added psychological conditioning building up, that just compresses them and makes them linger longer than they need to. Until you build a whole lifestyle on the limiting belief that you're a separate and fallible separate person. Yeah. But actually, the initial experience of separateness is not unpleasant. It just becomes unpleasant. It just becomes unpleasant. I mean, if that makes sense to you, that's been my experience, because we kind of love sensation.
Yes, we do. Yeah. So
yeah,
we like the drama.
We like, there's something I like, isn't it? But then it's putting turns, you see.
Guys, I need to go, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Marcel, many thanks. That's been
all right.
very
Thanks also for joining, everyone, Mike, everyone. So I think I'll wrap it up here also.
And just to complete what happened yesterday, just for 2 seconds, my drama was totally out of line. And so the idea of just turning up as present and listening worked, and stories were not true, and it all turned out well. So the drama was being created for 6 weeks, and all went in really well.
Excellent.
Thanks for sharing. So what in the end helped you? What was the solution?
Just listening, really, and just listening as presence, which we discussed. Yeah. And then I found a connection. Somebody he mentioned, I shared something that completely mirrored what he saw, and that started a connection. And a lot of the things that I've mentioned in the past did not resurface. And the only things he'd got that was any type of critique, which is to move away from guidance through the program to more coaching, which was fine. And that I mentioned, which Kat and several other people have mentioned to me, I mentioned the source of any wisdom I share too much. And they said they're not interested in hearing about Kat or Eckhart Tolle or Rupert Spira or anything. They just want to have that share. They don't need that. If they do need that, they'll ask for it. So I've had that pointed my way before. In fact, Kat has said that it's not helped my sort of seeker's journey, quoting people all the time. So that came out as well. So it was all a great big story.
Yeah, so, you build it up in your mind. And,
yeah, massively. Yeah. In fact, when I got back, I had a really bad headache, which is now gone. But yeah, it was all created. Probably the best example I can think of that's happened to me. But these things come along and help us. So thanks to everybody for their help yesterday, because it certainly worked out well.
Excellent.
Yeah, so basically you felt a resistance to that situation, and you became curious about it.
Yeah, which is what we discussed. Yeah,
and when we discussed, and then many people had good ideas to share, and so that is seems to be we can say that a functional resistance.
Yeah.
So yeah. But perhaps indeed, like if you, like Freyja says, if you are within a sense of everything is okay, then you can also find such solutions instead of staying inside a conflictuous self who has to be right, or who has to solve it, or who cannot move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Excellent.
Yeah. Thanks thanks everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. See you.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yes, bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Um,